Okay then, so let's get started with Act 1, scenes 4 to 7 then, which we've been studying over the last couple of weeks. Okay, so scene 4. So Duncan confirms the execution of the Thane of Cawdor, the old Thane of Cawdor. Malcolm says he heard that Cawdor died honourably by confessing his treason and repenting before he died. Duncan grieves the betrayal, praises Macbeth for his loyalty, and gives him Cawdor's title and lands, i.e. Thane of Cawdor. Macbeth swears loyalty to the king, but privately he calculates how many people now stand between him and the throne. Okay, so if we now want to analyse this, we could look at these four things. So the description of Cawdor's death here is a moment that will later stand in sharp contrast with Macbeth's own end. Cawdor feels remorse for what he has done, so even though he is executed, the king recognises his honour and grieves the betrayal and loss. Cawdor's death is not the cause for celebration. Now that Cawdor is dead and the king has confirmed Macbeth's new title, Macbeth is altered. Either the witch's prophecies have taken hold of him, or his own ambition has fully revealed itself. Either way, he has accepted their predictions as truth and begins quietly plotting his way to the throne. Okay, so scene 5. Lady Macbeth reads a letter from her husband announcing his new title and telling her about the witch's prediction that he will be king. So remember, this is the scene where Lady Macbeth is first introduced. Lady Macbeth is ready to do what she must to make that prediction come true, but wonders if her husband is strong enough to do the same. She receives word that Duncan will be visiting the castle that same night and begins plotting, asking the spirits to give her the daring and the strength of a man to help her carry out the plan. So this refers to that quote where she says, "Unsex me here." Macbeth then arrives ahead of the king, and Lady Macbeth urges him to eliminate Duncan. Macbeth puts her off, saying they will discuss this later, but she tells him to leave the planning to her. So from the moment she is introduced, it is clear that Lady Macbeth is more assertive than her husband. Her ambition does not need to be coaxed into action, hearing about the witch's predictions. She does not question them for a moment, and knows exactly what must be done to win the crown. She rejects the expectations of her sex, and makes the first of many speculations about her husband's manliness, saying he must be too full of the milk of human kindness to move against Duncan. Milk, of course, is produced by women to feed their children. Okay, so we've got that symbol of we've got care, motherhood, and purity. Lady Macbeth returns to this motive when she invokes the spirits, something she has in common with the witches, to exchange her milk for gall, a substance associated with anger and acid. When Macbeth arrives, she is already primed to commit murder, and she takes charge when he hesitates. So scene 6. So in scene 6, Duncan and his sons, along with Banquo and the other lords, arrive at Macbeth's castle. Duncan admires the castle and receives Lady Macbeth's greeting and hospitality. So in this brief scene, this scene serves the practical purpose of getting Duncan to Macbeth's castle to advance the plot. At the same time, it underscores the heinous nature of Lady Macbeth's plotting. She smiles and provides warm hospitality to a guest in her home, knowing that she will take the hospitality away at knife point while the guest sleeps under her roof. Dun dun dun. And finally, we've got Act 1, Scene 7, which is the final scene of this act. Okay, so as the servants prepare a banquet to honour the king, Macbeth debates with himself and shores up his courage to kill Duncan. However, he begins to have second thoughts and goes as far as telling his wife they will proceed no further, citing the honours Duncan has granted him. She responds by questioning his courage and his manhood and asks why he told her about the witches if he didn't want to become king. She assures him their plan will succeed if Macbeth does what he is supposed to do. She explains the details, saying she will get Duncan's guards drunk and Macbeth will stab Duncan in his sleep. Convinced at last, Macbeth praises his wife's nerve. He is ready. So this soliloquy at the start of the scene reveals Macbeth as a deeply divided character. So remember that a soliloquy is a speech you make to yourself that only the audience can hear. It's usually quite long and dramatic and gives the illusion of unspoken reflections of Macbeth's character, basically. Okay, so Macbeth is aware of the ethical duties of host and subject, and yet he is ready to violate those principles. He is fearful of the uncontrollable consequences of murder, and yet he is eager to reap murder's benefits. So this is what we're talking about with regards to his divided character. The exchange between Macbeth and his wife presents her as the architect of the assassination plot, and Macbeth as divided, sometimes a conspirator, other times he's a skeptic. Macbeth attempts to dissuade Lady Macbeth by reminding her how well Duncan has treated him. She pushes the plan forward here, circling back to her doubts about Macbeth's manhood, and saying that he owes more loyalty to her than to the king. She illustrates this point by saying she would rather kill her own child than break the oath that Macbeth has made to go through with this plot. Another rejection of the nurturing feminine ideal. Macbeth then remarks that his wife's personality is a better inheritance for sons than daughters. She has him wound up again to commit this terrible feat. Okay, so again we've got this idea of Lady Macbeth being in control of Macbeth and being very manipulative over him, which of course we know subverts traditional gender roles at the time. The time it was set, the 11th century, but also the time that a Shakespearean audience would have been watching this play. So we can also think about the effect of that, the effect of going against the norm, going against that female stereotype of what the role of a woman should have been like, in inverted commas. Okay, so Shakespeare is subverting that, so of course we can then link that to the fact that perhaps he's criticising a male-dominated culture, that of the patriarchy. Okay, so what I've given you here is just the very basics of scenes 4 to 7. Later on I will be doing some more videos looking deeper at certain key quotes and characters and analysing that in greater detail. But for now, we've got the basics here for our AO1, a bit of our AO2, and there's a bit of contextual information here with regards to the role of women in the 1600s, which we can be looking at. So, yeah, we've got the basics there. If you've got any questions, please comment below. But thank you for listening.